So guys, remember all those sexist complaints about Game of Thrones last season with that rape scene and whatnot? Yeah, after this episode, I better not be hearing about those anymore. Hey guys, Cameron for Game of Thrones Season 6, Episode 4, Book of the Stranger, or as it should have been called, Games of Badass Women, because that's exactly what this episode was. Not only was this by far the best episode of the season, but I think it was also a really great showcase for the women on this episode, because every character that's a woman in this episode really was very strong, especially the ending, which I know you guys want me to talk about, but also other really big scenes. There were some really big things in this episode. There were some reunions in this episode. There were some really big showdowns in this episode. This overall was just a really eventful episode, and I really love this episode. Maybe one of the best episodes of Game of Thrones of all time. I really love this episode. Thought there was some really great stuff here. But let's just get into it. Starting off right away with the first scene of this episode. I love the way this episode started. But it's a very eventful episode as well. Starting off with the first scene, which I definitely do want to get into. So as we know, last week, Jon Snow decided that he no longer wanted to be part of the Watch. He just felt that he wasn't, made for the Watch and that he just didn't deserve it. And I really didn't know where he was going to go. And this episode starts off right there. We see Dolores. Ed picks up Longclaw, which of course was Jon's sword, which apparently he's not going to be using anymore, which is really big because we know that Jon's relation with Longclaw, what he did with Longclaw. And Jon tells Ed that he's heading south, and Ed doesn't understand how Jon can just leave them now, and they argue over Jon bringing his oath when the gate opens for Brienne, Pod, and Sansa. They enter Castle Black, and we finally get that moment that everyone has been waiting for. Sansa and Jon's reunion finally happens in this episode. They see each other in the courtyard. Jon walks to her, they embrace, and it just is so rewarding, knowing that the Starks have been so divided all this time. Finally getting to see them together and finally getting to see them reunite. It really is a fantastic moment. And these two really do get to catch up, which I love seeing. We see Jon sits with Sansa as she eats and warms herself by the fire. And they reminisce about their days in Winterfell. And Jon says they never should have left. And I knew that eventually they would be reuniting, that this Stark reunion would happen. But I didn't know it would happen this soon. And it really does make sense. I mean, Jon has now left the Watch. Now he gets to be back with his sister, and Sansa says that she regrets being such an ass to Jon and his children, but Jon forgives her. And Jon makes clear that wherever they should go together. He doesn't want them to be separated anymore because it's really put them in these really dark paths. And Sansa said the only place they can go is home, and suggests taking Winterfell back from the Boltons. But I love what Jon says, that he does not want to fight anymore. And you can really tell that if there is a war coming, Jon is not really equipped to fight in it because he really does not want to fight. It's gotten him nowhere. He's, lost his oath now, and Sansa tells him that they don't take back the North and they'll never be safe, and that she'll do it herself if she has to. And right away, this really, like I said, shows the strong women power message of this episode, which really shows that the women are just as strong as the men. And a lot of people complained last season that, Sansa's rape and whatnot really showed that she was weak, but I think this really just shows that she's just as strong and she's willing to fight. While Jon, you can tell, is kind of down his luck. He's down his luck. He doesn't really want to fight. He doesn't really know what he wants to do anymore. He knows he wants to be with his sister, but he's just not really interested in fighting more. But I thought it was a very good way to start the episode. It was a very well-deserved reunion, and I definitely really love seeing that. And already, I was really loving this episode just from the start. Really great stuff. And I think Kit Harington and Sophie Turner really made that reunion very worthwhile. You could tell they really tried to make this like something that one of the things I love about this episode, though, is that it shows while Jon Snow, and even though it was the Watch still needs to go on and back together. Really, they're all kind of think this is showing that because Jon was their leader. Jon was the one that helped them through things, and now he's kind of left them. And basically, Davos asks if Melisandre plans to stay at Castle Black, and she says she'll do as Jon Snow commands, that he's the prince that was promised. And it seems like she's going to stay with Jon, which should make sense because she's the one that resurrected him. And Davos remembers that being Stannis and demands to know what happened to Stannis' forces. And Brienne fills him in, tells him that his forces were defeated in the field and that she executed Stannis. And I love that Brienne basically just takes credit for it because she should take credit for it. She was the one that killed Stannis. She got to kill him. And they finally do confirm that Stannis was killed. I mean, I think we knew that Stannis was killed, but we never actually saw it. But what I love about that is that a lot of people said, oh, we didn't see him, he's not dead. That really wasn't about Stannis dying. It was more about Brienne's victory. The fact that she was able to take out Stannis, the fact that she was able to win a fight. It really showed that you don't mess with Brienne. I mean, we know for a while you don't mess with Brienne, but that really shows, again, how strong she is. I love seeing that. And then after this, we get another very promising return return that I really loved and I think was very well-deserved, as much well-deserved as that Stark reunion was. I think in many ways this has been the season of returns and the season of redemption and showing how strong everyone still is and how they can rise against what happened to them with the dark past they went in last season. And in this next scene, we get another very promising return when we see Robin is practicing his archery, and Littlefinger finally arrives, and he arrived at, I think, the perfect time, because, of course, the last time we saw Littlefinger, he was involved with Sansa, and it looks like he's going to get involved, but he doesn't get involved in this scene. We see Jon Royce wonders how Sansa Stark ended up getting married to Ramsay Bolton, when Littlefinger was supposed to be taking her to the Fingers, and they accuse each other of duplicity, and basically, Littlefinger leaves it to Robin to the side, and Robin sees Littlefinger's counsel, and Littlefinger suggests giving Royce another chance, and Littlefinger tells Robin that Sansa is fleeing toward the wall, and Robin suggests helping his cousin. Littlefinger orders the Vale's forces mobilize, and it's clear that Littlefinger, I don't think, really knew what was going on with Sansa, but it is really his fault that what ended up happening with Sansa did happen. It's not really, really, I think, is kind of his fault what ended up happening there, but I think it really does show that things are going to get better there, that he is eventually going to find Sansa, and especially looks like next week, Sansa is going to confront him. I can't wait to see how that turns out. Really good stuff with Littlefinger in this episode, a very promising return, and I can't wait to see what else Littlefinger, or how Peter Baelish, whatever you want to call him, brings to the screen in the rest of the season. So then we get to where most of this episode takes place, which is actually on the Tyrion-Daenerys side of things. That is where the majority of the big events this episode happen, but Tyrion, you can really see, he is in full form with taking over Meereen. I mean, like I said before, I think if there's anyone eligible to lead Meereen that's not Daenerys, it would be Tyrion. This episode shows that he is very capable of doing so. We see he pretty much goes against what Melisandre and Grey Worm are telling him. He doesn't really care. He invites the leaders of the cities of Slaver's Bay to Meereen for a diplomatic meeting, and tensions in the meeting are high, but Tyrion points out that you don't need slaves to make money. He offers them 7 years' time to abolish the practice of slavery in return for them seeking their support of the Sons of the Harpy, and he ends the meeting by offering them women. He doesn't really care that, what I love about this scene is that he really is just leaving what he wants to do against everyone else. He doesn't really care what everyone else wants to do. What Tyrion wants to do is what matters to him. He's going to do what he feels is best, and I really did love seeing that, and that's what a great leader does. A great leader listens to the majority, but they really focus on what they want to do and make sure what they want to do gets done, and we know Tyrion, when he wants something done, it gets done, and it really shows how much of a badass Tyrion is, and I love seeing the side Tyrion because, of course, last year, we had that really down-his-luck Tyrion. We had that Tyrion that was drinking. We had that Tyrion that was getting over the death of, killing, now I can't even think of his name, Tywin, killing Tywin, everything, killing, his own father, so I really did love seeing that here. I think Tyrion, I love seeing him as this badass. He then enters the throne room to find an angry group of free men waiting for him. They want to know why he's meeting with Meereen's enemies, and they want to know when Daenerys will return, and I think Tyrion knows that Daenerys is eventually going to return, but I think right now he's just enjoying it, and they speak directly to Grey Worm and Melisandre, offended at the idea of making them peace with the slavers, but they both back Tyrion's play, basically because I think they know they can't really fight Tyrion, that Tyrion has his own ideas. They need to follow Tyrion, or else he's not going to, do what's in their best interest. If they go with his best interest, he's going to do what's in their best interest. That's kind of how Tyrion works. He's a very negotiable person. We've known this before. Later, Grey and Melisandre, they express their anger at Tyrion's terms and tell him that they do not trust the Masters to keep their word, and that Tyrion will end up being played, and that really, what Tyrion's asking them to do really is a lot. He's asking them to basically, agree with being slaves and agree with the Masters and everything, which they don't really want to do. We know, of course, what could happen if you're a slave, and that really Tyrion is getting himself into this deep hole. But honestly, I think Tyrion's doing a good thing here. I think Tyrion knows what he's doing. I don't think that he is 100% knows what he's doing. I think there are still some things that Tyrion is still kind of not 100% sure of, but I think for the most part, he's doing a really good job at taking over for Daenerys. That's what he would want him to do. I think Daenerys, she said straight out, she wanted him to do this, and he's only doing what Daenerys told him to do. He's not really just doing his own thing. He's doing what Daenerys said to do, which is be a leader, do what Daenerys said, and that's exactly what he's doing, and I think Daenerys really would be proud if we saw that, and I love seeing the side of Tyrion. This is the Tyrion that I love, and I'm glad we're getting more of that Tyrion this season. So then we see Daario and Jorah. They continue trekking through the Dothraki Sea as the heat and exhaustion sets in. You can tell it's a really hot day, and it's really starting to get to them. And I love seeing the two bicker about their relationships with Daenerys, which is kind of funny because really Daenerys wants nothing to do with both of them, as we know. She doesn't really love Daario or Jorah, if you remember. They find Vay's Dothrak, and Jorah says that Daenerys will have been taken to the temple of the Dosh Khaleen, and Jorah tells Daario that they must disarm before entering the sacred city, and while disarming, Daario notices Jorah's grayscale, and obviously we know what's going on with that grayscale, and they then sneak through the city at night. Jorah tries to pose as a merchant and seek directions from two Dothraki, but they don't buy it, and Jorah and Daario are forced to fight them. Daario kills one before he can alert the city. He then returns and saves Jorah from the other by stabbing in the back with a hidden dagger, and I love seeing the, basically, camaraderie that these two actually really do have, because it seemed like these two, they weren't going to get along at all, but it actually seems like they have very good camaraderie. I like seeing that. Daario then bashes in the body's head so that no one notices the stab wound. I thought it was a very good scene. I really like seeing those two working together. We think this is going to just be them passing through, and that we're just going to be seeing this, and that, oh, next week we'll see, how most of it goes down with them getting Daenerys and everything. But no, we actually see Daenerys in this episode, and we see them get to Daenerys in the next scene, which I'll definitely want to get into, because I think it was very well done, and it is where the majority of this episode definitely takes place, and I really did love seeing that. So while there was some really good stuff for Tyrion, and of course for Jon Snow and Sansa, the majority of the stuff I know you guys really want me to talk about has to do with Daenerys, because, oh my god, this was by far one of Daenerys' best episodes in a while. I mean, I really have been trying to figure out where they're going with Daenerys this season, if they're just going to have her be a prisoner again, but this episode shows that Daenerys definitely has her own path. She's had her own plan, and she's going to stick by that plan. We see Daenerys bonds with this high priestess because she explains the role of the Dosh Khaleen to Daenerys, and while Daenerys excuses herself to use the bathroom, one of the younger Dosh Khaleen goes with her, and they talk until Daario and Jorah find them, and Daario and Jorah actually do find Daenerys in this episode, but Daenerys doesn't want to escape, we find out. She has actually another plan. She wants to help the Dosh Khaleen, and the Dosh Khaleen tells her that she'll be the Dosh Khaleen until a fire happens, and that she's set on fire, and it really is this fantastic moment for Daenerys. You can tell that really she doesn't want to go back. She actually has another plan in mind, and it really does show that Daenerys is not weak like we thought she was. She's not weak at all. She clearly does have her own plan, and I love seeing that side of Daenerys again. I think it's that's the Daenerys that we love. Emilia Clarke really killed in this episode, especially at the ending, which I know you guys want me to talk about. But then we get another really great scene with the High Sparrow that I definitely want to talk about. One of my favorite parts of last week's episode, even though I did feel it was a bit uneventful, there were some really great things about last week's episode, but, it wasn't my favorites, was, of course, the twist with the High Sparrow. The fact that we found he was very vulnerable, the fact that we found he didn't have a mother, and that was why he didn't want Cersei to go to Myrcella's funeral, because he never had a mother. And here we find out even more about the High Sparrow, because the Septa brings Margarey to the High Sparrow. He asks her where she would go if she were set free, and she says she would go to her brother, husband, and family, but he sees that as running to power and wealth, and basically, I do think that that's where she goes. She go to, her brother, she go to Tommen, and she go to the Lannisters, and he tells her about his past as the son of the cobbler. And really, I think they're trying to humanize and really get us to understand the High Sparrow more, because he talks about how he would make shoes for the wealthy and gain some wealth for himself, and he then had to change of heart after a particularly rowdy feast, and the next morning opened his eyes to lies and stories he was telling to convince himself of his own lies, and kept his station. He walked out the door to find the poor, and he never went back, not even bothering to put his shoes on, and he then offers to take Margarey to finally see her brother, and it's this great moment. I think the High Sparrow is really realizing what Margarey wants to do. She just wants to see her family. She wants to visit her family. He's going to finally give her that opportunity to see her family, and it's this great moment where once again we get a great view where Margarey finds Loras lying still on the ground of his cell. She stirs when she comes inside, then begins weeping, because she clearly hasn't seen her brother in a while, and she tells him to stay strong. He asks to help, but make it stop, and Margarey realizes that the High Sparrow wants her to help tear him down, which is really interesting. The High Sparrow basically wants her to help bring her brother down, which is interesting to see. But I did like the way we saw that scene with the High Sparrow, the way they kind of humanized him, the way we kind of saw what was going there. But Margarey, is she really going to do what the High Sparrow wants? I'm not really sure. Notice she didn't go to Tommen. I thought that she was going to go to Tommen, but she doesn't. She went to Loras, and will she really try to bring her brother down? I mean, he's clearly already suffering, so is she going to make him suffer more? I'm not really sure. Based on this episode, I don't really see that happening, but I really did love that scene with the High Sparrow. I think they did some really good stuff there. It, of course, did show how manipulative he can be, but it also showed the trauma that he really did go through. I don't think he's lying about his past. I think his past really did happen. And I think it really is showing that the High Sparrow is a lot more than we think he is, and I definitely did love seeing that. So back with the Lannisters, we see Cersei walks in on Grandmaster Pycelle advising Tommen on the problem with the High Sparrow, and Pycelle is dismissed. Tommen says he doesn't want to risk antagonizing the High Sparrow while they have Margarey, which he feels that Margaery's going to go back to him. It's clear that she's not, and Cersei snaps a bit. Tommen notes that Cersei doesn't like Margaery, which we've known before that Cersei really does not support Tommen and Margaery, but Cersei says that doesn't matter. Tommen tells his mother about something that he discussed with the High Sparrow, and we then get the scene with the Lannisters, which honestly I continue to feel really bad for because of the fact that they really don't want to take part in this war, you can tell. They really don't want to be a part of this. They're trying to make sure this war doesn't happen, and again, I think they know that a war is inevitable, but they're trying to make sure it doesn't happen. And Cersei and Jaime inform the small council that their meeting is canceled, informs them that the king has been meeting with the High Sparrow, and that the queen will be forced to make a walk of atonement before Cersei has her trial, and of course, Cersei knows what that walk of atonement is like. She doesn't want Cersei to have to go through that same thing. And I think that really is what this is all about, is that Cersei doesn't want to have to go through that. She knows the pain of what that did to her. And Tommen ordered Kevan Lannister not to move against the faith, so Jaime suggests the Tyrell army do it instead, while Lannister and the Red Cloaks just stand aside. But you can tell that they're really not, in charge here, and that they really don't get a say, it seems. It seems like things are going to happen without them being told, without their consent, and that they really don't get a say in what happens. And it's really sad to see, because I honestly do feel bad for the Lannisters. They once were the highest power, and now they've really been downgraded, and now they're trying to get back to make their own decisions, and they can't even control, like, if this is really gonna work. And of course Cersei doesn't want Margaery to have to take that walk of atonement, and I think really it's making Cersei really go through this personal journey. I really do like seeing that, and you can tell this has really haunted her as well. Some really good stuff there. I really enjoyed it. If there's any woman I think that's not in control, it's Cersei. Cersei's the only one that's really not in control of herself. I think she wants to be, but again, she's known that she's really not the greatest person, and because of that, I think she really wants to make herself suffer. Not necessarily make herself suffer, but I think this whole idea of the walk of shame has really haunted her, and you definitely do see that here. So I think there was some really good stuff there. I definitely really enjoyed that. And then we get another reunion between Theon and Yara, which I definitely do want to talk about. So just like that Stark reunion, and also just like Littlefinger's return, we get another reunion in this episode between Theon and Yara. We see he finally decides to return to Pike, and obviously Sansa's now gone with Jon, so the question is, where did Theon go? He goes back to Pike, and he finds Yara, who's surprised to see him, and of course, Yara knows the pain that he went through. He tells her that he escaped, and the last time he saw Yara, if you remember, he was a slave, he was Reek, and she didn't really know what to do, and she's angry that good men died trying to rescue him, that he betrayed her, and that he basically was forced to betray her, and Yara wonders if Theon came because he thought he had a shot at being king, but he says he didn't know Balon died until he docked, and he wants to help Yara take the throne, and basically he really wants to inherit the throne. He doesn't want Ramsay to take over. I think he really wants to be strong, but Yara, of course, we know, was the one that killed, Yara, we know, she's going after the person that killed Balon, and we know, of course, who killed Balon. I can't remember his name right now, but it is someone that's very close to Balon, and definitely that's going to be very interesting as well. How's Theon going to react to that? I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how that goes. But then we get a truly terrifying scene, this next scene, where even though we have a very powerful woman in this next scene, things really do not end well for that character. This episode is definitely more of women having the higher power than men do, but this next scene shows that even if they do, there are certain enemies that they just won't be able to defeat. We get another return from Osha in this episode. She's brought to Ramsay, and Osha is very unimpressed by the flayed men on the Bolton banner, and Osha claims no loyalty to House Stark, that she's not at all related to Sansa and everything, but Ramsay doesn't see what use he has for her, so she comes on to him while reaching for the knife on the table. She's basically just trying to say, look, I'm on your side, you can trust me. Ramsay doesn't care. She basically lunges for it. You can tell that she's going to try to kill Ramsay. Ramsay stabs her in the neck with a knife he had in his person, and he kills her. He kills Osha. Osha's dead. Even though Osha tried to show that she's on his side, and that then it looked like she was going to kill him, I didn't really know what she was really trying to do. It still shows how terrifying and utterly just disgusting of a creature Ramsay really is. I mean, when I say creature, obviously Ramsay's a human being, but Ramsay really is disgusting, and it really does show that here. He is this disgusting, vile man who basically it's his way or no way at all, and he continues to be, I think, one of the most terrifying characters we have ever had on Game of Thrones. And a lot of people compared him to Joffrey, but I really think the difference between him and Joffrey is that Joffrey was an annoying little brat who, if he didn't get his way, then he would throw fits, while Ramsay is very terrifying. I mean, he will do things very violently. You know, Joffrey didn't kill his father. That's the thing. Joffrey didn't kill his father. Ramsay did kill his father, and I think that alone shows how terrifying Ramsay really is, and how, at this point, it seems like undefeatable Ramsay really is. But I think Littlefinger might be the one to condemn Ramsay. I'm not really sure who's going to be the one to bring him down, but someone does have to bring him down, because Ramsay can't just keep going around killing people. Obviously, he needs to, you know, someone needs to bring him down, but we'll have to see what happens with that. That's going to be very interesting, but it does show just how terrifying and how powerful Ramsay really is, and it really is sad to see, because you want someone to take down Ramsay, but it just doesn't seem like it's possible at this point. We'll have to see what happens with that, and that's going to be very interesting to see if anyone can really bring him down, because at this point, I don't know if it's possible, but we'll have to see, definitely. So, really terrifying stuff there. I really hope someone does bring Ramsay down, but I really don't know if it's possible. So before we get to the crazy ending of this episode, we do get one little last scene with Jon and Sansa. Well, not little scene, it's a pretty big scene, actually. But I really do love this scene. We see a Bolton Bannerman rides to Castle Black. Jon, Sansa, and their allies are eating when a man delivers Jon a letter with a Bolton seal. Brienne is there as well, and a lot of people are, I know, shipping Brienne and Tormund just from that little scene they had together. Yes, I will admit, it would be nice for Brienne to have a love interest. I'm not really talking about that, though. But Jon, Sansa, and their allies are eating when a man delivers Jon a letter with a Bolton seal, and the letter mocks Jon for letting wildlings through the wall and tells him that he has control of Winterfell and Rickon in the dungeon, and he tells Jon to return Sansa or he'll ride to the wall and kill everyone, that Jon is not, Sansa's not Jon's to have, and he stops short, but Sansa finishes the letter, which threatens to let Jon watch as his soldiers take turns raping Sansa, and the dogs devour Rickon. Sansa tells Jon that Ramsay claimed he had 5,000 men, and Sansa knows that these are just people that work for Ramsay, and Tormund says that he has 2,000, and Sansa tells Jon that he can rally the loyal northern houses to his cause, and I like that Sansa really is saying that, look, I'm not just gonna let people, rape me. I'm not gonna let people rape me. I'm not gonna let people kill me. I'm going to fight. And Jon, she wants Jon to fight. Jon obviously said he doesn't want to fight, but Jon's going to have to in this situation. He really cares about Sansa, and he really wants to, have his sister live and really enjoy this reunion he's having. He needs to fight, and it's really not a question. He needs to fight. He needs to, understand when he needs to fight and when to get involved, and I think it's a perfect example of how he needs to fight. I'm really looking forward to seeing how that's going to go. Really good stuff with Jon, Sansa, and stuff. So, and even though Jon said, that he's no longer the leader, in many ways, he still gets to make decisions, and the way that he still gets to make decisions about the wall, you can tell that Ramsay really is not letting up. He still wants Sansa to himself, and he's going to make sure that, she gets killed, but I think Jon is really going to be the one to take on Ramsay. Like I said, I don't know if anyone's going to be able to take him on, but I think Jon really could be the one to take him on. Let's see what happens with that, and that's going to be very interesting as well. I do like what's going on with Brienne and Tormund. Not really a lot to say with that, but I really did love Jon and Sansa in that scene. I'm hoping that Sansa does get Jon to fight, because obviously she does want Jon to fight, and it seems like that he can get, the northern houses on his side, and that basically that's what he's going to do. He's going to get this war against Ramsay. It really seems like this war at this point is inevitable. It's going to happen, and there really is no way to stop it from happening, but I really like the way that was done. Really good scene there. And then we get to the crazy in this episode, which I know you guys want to talk about because it was insanely awesome, and let's just get to it. Alright, so I already talked about how awesome of an episode this was for Daenerys and everything, how awesome Emilia Clarke was. We knew that Daenerys had some sort of plan, and this episode shows that Daenerys has this plan, that she's going to make sure this plan works out the way she wants it to. We see Khal Moro and the other Khals sit in conference and call for Daenerys to be brought inside. Moro says she belongs with the Dosh Khaleen, but another Khal says the wise masters of Yunkai are offering horses for her. Daenerys asks if they want to know what she wants, and recalls the last time she was in Days Vothrak, and she recalls Khal Dorgo's promises and accuses the Khals of being small men in comparison, and basically that they have no power over her. And Moro threatens Daenerys, but she is unimpressed, and basically she is not at all threatened by these men. She knocks over the braziers in the temple, sets it on fire. She watches as the Khals panic as the walls burn, and it's this incredible scene. I mean, she is the one that is controlling all this. The Khals, they're watching their walls burn and everything. They try to open the doors. Jorah and Daario have barred them because they know that Daenerys is strong stronger. And it's clear that Jorah and Daario, they want Daenerys to take over. And the doors collapse. Daenerys walks out of the fire. It's this incredible scene where you finally see Daenerys. She has the upper hand. She's no longer being controlled by anyone. She is completely in control. The crowd of Dothraki onlookers kneel before her. Jorah and Daario do the same. She now seems to be the Dosh Khaleen, which, I mean, I think she had that in mind once she found out that the only way to get to be the Dosh Khaleen is to make sure the other Dosh Khaleen dies, and that scene was just incredible because we've had seasons now of Daenerys being prisoner or Daenerys having people with higher power over her, and this really shows that that Daenerys has never gone anywhere. I think that Daenerys has always been there. She's just been waiting to come out. Daenerys finally had that moment where she was heroic and she finally got to be a leader again, which I did love seeing. But it really does make me think that she's not going back to Meereen. She does not want to go back to Meereen. She wants to be part of the Dosh Khaleen. I think she wants Tyrion to lead Meereen, and she thinks that he's better for it and that she just isn't part of it anymore. Dosh Khaleen really is what she wants to be, and I think that's where she's headed for the rest of the season. But what a great way to end this episode. Like I said, an incredible episode of empowering women, and now let's get more into this episode and my predictions for next week. So overall, guys, a really incredible episode. I really loved everything that happened in this episode. I thought there were some great reunions here. That ending, of course, was amazing. But let's talk about Daenerys, because like I said, I really do think she wants to be this leader. She doesn't want to be part of Meereen anymore. She wants to leave that to Tyrion. Tyrion, I think, is doing a fine job with that. Obviously, a lot of people are worried that he's digging himself into this hole, but I think Daenerys thinks that he can manage it and that she really doesn't need to anymore. I think her days of tending to the dragons and Drogo and things like that, remember, Tyrion was the only one that could tame those dragons. Tyrion was the only one that could get those dragons to not, be as vicious and as, just savage as they were. He was able to tend to them, as we saw in the last episode, and I think that shows enough that Tyrion, this is really what he's meant to do, that he is meant to help them. He is meant to be the leader of Meereen, and I could really see him doing that. I think Daenerys really does want to be part of the Dosh Khaleen. It seems like Daario and Jorah want to do that as well. I did like the camaraderie, like I said, between Daario and Jorah in this episode. I think they worked very well together. I'm looking forward to seeing, hopefully, more pairings with those two in future episodes, because I think they work very well together. I definitely really did like seeing that. I thought there was some really good stuff there. But where does Daenerys go from me? Now she is the Dosh Khaleen. Does she really know what she's getting herself into? I think she very well knows what she's getting herself into. I think this is very well what Daenerys wanted, and I don't think she's going to let anyone tell her what to do. I think she's going to do what she wants and nothing else. We'll have to see what happens with that. That's going to be very interesting. Let's talk about Sansa, because she clearly does want Jon to fight, and I love how Sansa really isn't afraid. Like, she has gone through all the pain. She knows what Ramsay's capable of. She knows what Ramsay wants to do, and she wants to be the one to put a stop to it. Now, do I think Sansa's gonna be the one to kill Ramsay? I mean, it would be awesome if Sansa finally kills Ramsay, because one, a lot of people have said that Sansa, she's very weak and everything. I think this episode really showed that Sansa is not weak. She was damaged and she was hurt, but now she's gotten over that damage. She is now using that damage as vengeance, and she's going to use Jon to fight, and I think she is going to get Jon to fight eventually. Right now, obviously, he doesn't feel that he's equipped for that, and that he just shouldn't fight because of what happened last time, but I think Sansa, she is going to get him to fight. Hopefully that works out, and it seems like they could be the only ones to fight Ramsay, because at this point, it seems like no one can bring down Ramsay. It's clear in that scene with Osha. I think Osha was going to try to kill Ramsay, but clear that he has power over her, and I think Sansa and Jon, they might be the only ones to take on Ramsay. We'll have to see what happens with that. That's going to be very interesting. I really do feel bad for the Lannisters right now, because obviously they do want to have some control, but they really have no control whatsoever. It seems like it's always the High Sparrow or someone just over what they say, and even though Jaime does think the best thing to do is the Tyrell army, have the Tyrell army, do what they want to do to move against the Faith, it's clear that they have other plans, and Cersei clearly does not want Margarey to have to go through what she did. We'll have to see what happens with that. That's going to be very interesting as well, if she's going to be able to stop this. And is Margarey really going to do what the High Sparrow wants? Is she really going to weaken her brother more? I mean, clearly he wants her to do that, but we'll have to see what happens with that. That's going to be very interesting to see if she actually does. I did like that scene with the High Sparrow, but like I said, I think it does show how manipulative the High Sparrow can be. Even though the High Sparrow, like I said, I do feel bad for the High Sparrow, I think it really also shows how manipulative that guy can really be, because he really is very manipulative when you really think about it. I really thought there was some really good stuff with that. Now, as far as Tyrion goes, what is he really getting himself into? Obviously, if this plan really works with the slaves basically trying to unite with their owners or whatever is going on there, I'm not really sure. I'm glad we didn't get Arya in this episode because that's the only plot that, again, I'm not 100% sure what's going on. Let's talk about Littlefinger, because does Littlefinger realize what Sansa's gone through? I mean, I don't really think he does. I think part of what's going on has been Littlefinger's fault. It looks like Sansa's going to confront Littlefinger. I'm pretty sure she's going to try to get Littlefinger to rise up against Ramsay. Does Littlefinger really know what Ramsay is capable of? We'll have to see what happens with that. That's going to be very interesting. We remember last season, Littlefinger and Sansa, it seemed like they were going to go out on their own, but then the whole thing with Ramsay happened, and things, of course, didn't go well there, so Littlefinger hasn't seen Sansa since, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that whole thing is going to go down. I like seeing Jon and Sansa reunite. I think very slowly we're going to get some other Stark reunions, which I'm looking forward to. I think that's going to be really cool as well. The Watch. How is the Watch going to go on without Jon Snow? I mean, obviously, Melisandre, it looks like is going to go after Jon Snow. Wherever Jon Snow goes, she goes, which is very interesting. I like seeing Melisandre take that unexpected path that I really didn't think she was going to go. But that's going to be interesting as well to see how that all turns out. And then I really think that's it, guys. Overall, an amazing episode. I really love this episode overall. I think there was some really great, like I said, women power in this episode, which I think is really good because, again, all the complaints last season, I said in the beginning of this episode, the beginning of this review for a reason, that everyone was complaining that, oh, the show's sexist and it handles women as weak and everything, but no. I mean, when you're raped, there's not really much you can do. Sansa has now moved on from it. She really, it seems like it's made her stronger, and now she really wants revenge. She wants to take down Ramsay, and it seems like she is the one to do that, and I can't wait to see what that turns out. But overall, guys, most of you guys saw this episode. I absolutely love this episode. By far, best episode of the season. The rest of the season, I'm sure is going to be amazing. I cannot wait to see how it turns out. Looks like next week we are back with Arya as well. Bran and Arya were the only two things we didn't touch upon in this episode. But let me know what you guys saw. Sub your thoughts on it. And we'll see you guys. Also, let's talk about Brienne and Tormund real quick. I know a lot of people want them together, so I'll see how that turns out. But I will see you guys in my next video, which will be for Fear the Walking Dead. And I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.